There was no sanctuary or baptismal font or pews. There was just a group of people who felt something stirring, a conviction they couldn't shake, that God was calling them to plant a church near a college campus and see what he would do with it. They didn't have much, but they had each other. They had a sense of calling, and they had the stubborn belief that God was in it, and that would be enough. And it was. Over the next several weeks, we're going to trace what God has built here across 70 years. We're going to tell stories and celebrate his faithfulness. And on May 3rd, we're going to gather together and mark what God has done in a very big way. But today is where we begin. This is what faithfulness looks like when you stretch it across time. Because what just happened today at the font and in the baptismal trough wasn't just a ceremony. It wasn't a tradition that we just check off the list. It was the grace of God made visible. We saw water placed on heads and dunked and names spoken out loud. We watched as young people stand and say out loud in front of everyone, "This faith is mine." I want you to take a moment and feel that weight. These young people who have been in class with me, they've wrestled with questions, some unique. Sometimes we found scripture that we didn't always know was there, breathing murderous threats on others. That's actually in the Bible. We've had the conversations that don't always have easy answers. And today, they don't graduate with their faith, but they continue to step into it. Now, here's what I want us to understand from the very beginning. In our Wesleyan tradition as United Methodists, we believe that God does not wait for us to get ready before God acts. This is what we call prevenient grace, grace that goes before. Before a child can understand a single word or a single word of theology, God says, "You are mine." Before a teenager, or honestly an adult, can explain the Trinity and what it means, God says, "I already love you." Before any of us could prove that we deserve it, God reaches us first. This water wasn't just water. These words that they said weren't just words. They are the fingerprints of God, who has been pursuing these young people their entire lives. And today in this room, they turned and said, "I see you, God. I believe." Friends, that's holy. And I want the families in this room, all of you, to hear something clearly. You did something right. Not perfect. None of us parent perfectly. None of us mentor perfectly. But each of you, you brought these young people up. You brought them here. You've prayed over them. You showed up faithfully. And God has worked through all of it. 70 years of Pittman Park is really just that. It's repeated over and over again. Imperfect people showing up faithfully and God working through it. Here's where I want us to focus just a little bit. Because today's text, it doesn't give us a triumphant scene. It gives us something a little more honest. It's Easter evening. The resurrection just happened. The tomb is empty. We had the Easter celebration last week. The news has reached the disciples, and where are they? Behind locked doors, hiding, afraid. They're together, but paralyzed in that fear. And I think we need to sit with that just for a moment, because this is not a real flattering point for the first church. And yet John, the writer of the Gospel of John, puts it right here, front and center, and he tells us something true. He says, it is entirely possible to have witnessed something miraculous and still lock the doors. It is possible to grow up in the church, to know the stories, to have felt something move in your chest during worship, and to still live the rest of your week behind locked doors, locked against risk, against any cost, locked against what it might mean if you actually let faith shape your whole life. To our confirmands, I am not saying this to scare you. I'm telling you this because I want you to know what it feels like, because you will feel that way, but you are not failing. You are in good company. The very people that Jesus built his church on, they locked the doors to. But this is what Jesus does with it. Jesus doesn't just knock. He doesn't wait. He doesn't send a message asking, is now a good time? Wouldn't we love that? Jesus appears right in the middle of their fear, and he simply says, peace be with you. Not because the situation around them had changed. Not because the danger had passed or the questions have been answered, but peace because God is present. And then he does something unexpected. He shows them his wounds, not his glory. Not the full demonstration of power, but he shows his scars. Because the peace that he's offering them is not built on the absence of suffering. The peace that he is showing is built on the fact that he walked through it and came out on the other side. And church, the church that we're celebrating 70 years of this morning, it has its scars too. There have been years of plenty and years of drought. There have been hurt and healings, funerals that would break our hearts, and baptisms that fill us back up. There have been pastors that might have stayed too long and some that might have left too soon. There have been moments where the church, in our own way, locked the door, and it might have had to be pried open by God's grace. But here we are. 70 years, still worshiping, still welcoming, still building. This is not our accomplishment. It is God's faithfulness. And every confirmation class, including this one, is the next chapter of that story. But Jesus doesn't let them stay in comfort of that moment. Because this is the line I want all of us to carry home today. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. The disciples had hoped that this was a moment to hold on to stay comfortable, but Jesus made it clear this is a moment we need to step into. He breathes on them, drawing us back to those echoes of Genesis, of the God who breathed life into the first humans. And he says, receive the Holy Spirit. Because they are being called. What they are being called cannot be done on human strength alone. What we are being called to cannot be sustained in our own strength either. And that's the word that Wesley calls sanctifying grace. The ongoing work of God in us. Not just saving us, but building us, shaping us into people who live differently in the world. And that's exactly what this is about. Being built on God's faithfulness. Not finished, because we are constantly under construction. Not a monument to what was, but a foundation for what is coming. So let me say this as plainly as I can, and especially to those of you today. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. The disciples were not ready. They were afraid and confused and hiding, and Jesus sent them anyway. You don't have to have everything figured out. Because we will have Sundays that feel flat, prayers that feel like they're just hitting the ceiling and not getting anywhere. We'll have seasons where faith feels more like a habit than a flame, and that's normal, that's human, that's part of the journey. The question is not whether you're ready. The question is, will you stay willing? Willing to show up, willing to keep asking the hard questions, willing to let this community speak into your life, willing to carry faith outside these walls into your schools or homes, friendships, your choices. That's what confirmation and honestly faith for each of us means. Not that I've finally arrived, but that I am going. And then there's Thomas. Thomas who says, unless I see the nail marks, I will not believe. Here's what we know. Jesus is not threatened by that. He doesn't dismiss Thomas. He doesn't lecture him, doesn't ask the other disciples to explain it better because I apparently can't do it. But he shows up again specifically for Thomas and says, here, look for yourself. And in that moment, Thomas doesn't give this theological explanation. He says, my Lord and my God. Friends, in this room today, there are questions. If you sat through this service and there's still part of you that's not sure, I want you to hear what Thomas' story tells us. It tells us that doubt is not the opposite of faith. Doubt can be the very place where faith becomes personal. Jesus did not meet Thomas in his certainty. He met him at his questions. And he'll meet us there too. But here's what I don't want us to miss. The miracle in this passage isn't that Jesus walked through locked doors, because that's pretty cool. But the miracle is that he sends them back out. The doors were locked, but the doors were never the real problem. Fear was the problem. Comfort was the problem. The desire to hold on to this really special moment rather than live it, that was the problem. And Jesus came not to sit with them in their safety. He came to send them into their purpose. So let me ask all of us, what just happened in this room today? Is it something we're just going to admire? Or is it something we're going to live out? Like I've said, this isn't graduation, it's a commissioning. God spoke over you today, students, before you fully understand what it means. And you will spend your life growing into those words you professed today. And that's exactly as it should be. And in just a moment, we will offer up for those who are interested in joining in membership to this church. Now be clear, we are not joining a club. You are joining in a mission. You are adding your name to the 70 years of people who said, I'm staying, I'm building, I believe this mission matters. These young people are not just the future of the church, they are the church right now. And so are each and every one of you. So in just a moment, we'll sing, Go Make of All Disciples. And if you would like to profess and join into membership here at Pittman Park, we will invite you to come forward. To join into this congregation, we will ask two questions. Professing a belief in Jesus Christ and a commitment to serve with your prayers, your presence, your gifts, your service, and your witness. It means you're choosing to be part of what God has been building here for 70 years. It means you're choosing to stay willing, even if maybe you don't feel ready. It means you're stepping outside of locked doors and into a mission that Jesus has put before us. So the only question left is the same one for the disciples that they faced on that Easter evening. Will we stay behind these doors or will we go?